Hi everyone, my name is Meg Sheehan. I'm here in North Plymouth. Today is July 21st, 2026. I'm at the end of Prince Street here in North Plymouth, right off of Route 3A. Right behind me is the forest where they're planning to put the Pulte Homes project. Maybe you saw our last video, low tide, high risk, about the risk of coastal flooding associated with the other part of the Pulte project, which will be at the end of Hedge Road down by Sandry Drive, right on the waterfront, with a couple of perennial streams right there. This time we're on the uphill side. I'm right near High Cliff, which is right behind me at the end of Prince Street here. This is kind of where my family's from in North Plymouth, the Italian side of my family. My aunt Leontina lived right in that house, a couple doors down. I came here very often with my mother and my grandmother to visit her sister. And so this has a lot of historic meaning for me and for a lot of people who have roots in North Plymouth. And of course, a lot of people, they say, I think several thousand people at one point worked at the cordage factory, which is just half a mile over on my right that way. And so this really was the hub of the Italian and Portuguese community in Plymouth, starting in the late 1800s. So we're going to take a walk around. I asked my friend Joe Falconeiri, land steward.
All right, I'm Joe Falconeiri, standing here with Meg today, taking a tour of a local project that's very important. A last remaining piece of open space that, I think warrants taking a close look at. The processes that are leading to this potential development here. So I'm looking forward to taking a closer look with Meg and seeing what we have.
Yeah, so we're here because, as you may know, the Plymouth Zoning Board of Appeals did approve the 40B project that's slated for here in two parts. This part on the upland, the other part down on the waterfront, a total of 165 units. Not all of them will be affordable housing. Some will be the $1 million condos overlooking the waterfront. And I'm standing here, as I said, on Prince Street, and we are abutting an environmental justice community, which is really a big issue for the state, really, because those are the communities that have been overlooked and bear a disproportionate amount of pollution and traffic and climate risk, etc. So this might look like a small forest here, about 12 or 15 acres, but in terms of the environmental justice community and this dense neighborhood in North Plymouth, it's really important. And that's one of the things that the state looks at very carefully under what's called its MEPA review under our state Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, MEPA. And that requires projects that meet a certain threshold, both a state agency action and a certain number of acres or trees or environmental natural resources. So in this particular situation, we're wondering about the shade trees. Now, if there are 5 or more shade trees, that would trigger an environmental impact filing by Pulte Homes, and it would also require very close scrutiny because this project is within way less than a mile of an environmental justice community. I have to just do an aside. We went to MEPA, over 25 acres of forest clearing in Wareham, and Makepeace and Beals and Thomas went back and made it 24.5.
When I took my first measurement of Tohono that got her involved in all this, from satellite using the Google Earth tool, I was getting 49.5 acres, so they needed 50 or less to avoid the MEPA. Yes. And I was measuring that on Google Earth, figuring that out on Google Earth.
This is what they do.
That's
right?
what they do.
All right.
It's crazy. I'm like, why are these all 49 and a half? It's weird. And then she's like, oh yeah, they have to meet 50. I'm like, oh, that's why it's 49 and a half.
Anyway, so practicing environmental law for almost 40 years, I kind of see how sometimes developers will frame a project a certain way in order to avoid thresholds and avoid the kind of really rigorous environmental review that most of these projects require. And you may have been at the ZBA hearing where people were challenging the traffic numbers. So traffic is another threshold that would trigger this rigorous environmental review. Well, Pulte said that their traffic numbers were just under what would be required to trigger MIPA. So here, Pulte is saying that there are only 4 shade trees. And if there are 5 shade trees, then they must go to do this environmental review. So we're looking around and raising questions about whether there are shade trees. And you might wonder, what is a shade tree, a public shade tree? And that would be a tree that is within the right-of-way. So here, even though I'm standing on the pavement, there's another 10 or so feet at least over here that is considered the right-of-way according to the town of Plymouth and how this road is laid out. So we're going to see if there are some more shade trees that would count toward the 5 shade trees and see if Pulte really should do that study. And so that's what Joe and I are hoping to take a look at today.
Cool. And what's important is that Meg's here just to, she's being the utmost citizen to just keep checks and balances of the process.
Right.
That's all that's going on here.
Everywhere.
Right? Yeah, everywhere, doing it everywhere, and that's the principle. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Crossing the T's and dotting the I's. If they do it, so can't we. And if we care about our community and care about the future of the community, it's important to look at these things and sometimes step up and challenge it, and then work together and voice together, saying, hey, maybe this isn't right. Yeah, and everyone's following the processes the correct way. That's all this is about.
Yeah.
It's not anti-development, although there are good alternatives if it doesn't get developed. And there are huge assets of having this stay open space, of all those environmental values, clean air, clean water, climate resilience, and then just the lifestyle, quality of life values for future generations. To be able to have that is really important. I think most of Plymouth, feels that,
So Joe and I are going to check this out. And here's our first public shade tree, wouldn't you say, Joe?
Looks to me.
This is a nice maple tree. How old do you think it is?
It's tough to tell.
Good sized maple tree.
Pretty mature.
Pretty mature. Is this our second tree?
You got a maple.
Okay, wow, look at that. We've got another maple tree here. This is in the right of way. This is a beautiful shade tree. You can see this great canopy here. Very mature tree. So that's our second one. Yeah, I'm standing here. Just came across the sign for the ZBA hearing describing the project. This is called the 39 Hedge Road project. And we're walking along here. We do see some really tall trees, almost as tall as those other maple trees. But correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but in order to meet the standard for the MIPA environmental review, it has to be 18 inches at
breast height.
Diameter around at DBH.
It's 14 inches, but that one would be a little bit too small.
Just by a couple inches.
Yeah.
Rats.
Missed it.
All right, but how about this one here?
That's a big old cherry.
And big old cherry tree, really wonderful tree.
Yeah.
And this definitely counts at 18 inches.
Absolutely.
So we've got that one. So that gives us...
That's 3.
3. How about this one over here?
That's another one.
This another one?
In the right of way.
In the right of way.
Over
Okay,
14
definitely
inches.
18 inches.
Nice shade tree.
Pretty tall. How tall would you say that tree is?
65 feet.
65 feet. So we're up to 4. But what about this, Joe? This looks alive to me.
Looks like a oak tree. It's got some invasive Asian bittersweet on it, but you see that a lot around here, especially on roadways. But it's alive and well. It's an oak tree, some type of oak, a red or scarlet.
And here are the plans that Pulte submitted to the town of Plymouth on February 27th, 2026. This plan shows the removal of 16 street trees, 4 of which Pulte correctly marked as above 14 inches. However, this tree in the corner, marked here in gray with a 24-inch diameter, was incorrectly marked as dead by Pulte and would clearly be the 5th street tree to trigger a rigorous state environmental review. And then we were wondering about the definition of a shade tree. It would seem that the definition would mean it's shading the street and providing cooling services for the community. So what about this tree here?
Well, in the case of the right-of-way, we're wondering if, because at the edge of the right-of-way, the branches are over the right-of-way, it probably cast shade into the right-of-way. It's probably definitely providing shade into the right-of-way. I'm not sure, Meg. You have to do your due diligence and double check to see if that's an actual shade tree or not.
Okay, I'll definitely do that. And I'm standing in the right-of-way. Would you say I'm in the right-of-way?
I would say yes. Yeah, and the branches look to be over the right-of-way. So if you were to draw a plane, straight up, those branches are in the right-of-way. So perhaps even though the trunk is beyond it, maybe that constitutes a shade tree. I'm not sure. You're gonna have to find out.
And that would give us 6 trees.
That would be 6.
And maybe we could go to get a really good environmental review on this project and have a different outcome.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt to maybe check.